Marshall in the middle.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Marshall in the Middle here. We are on the corner of Ardennes and Longstreet here on big old Fort Bragg, North Carolina, virtually. And today we have our guest here, who is my wife, Jessica Aganaga, who's also a veteran. And then I'll introduce her. But before we get started, Penny Law, we're gonna go ahead and we'll go ahead and throw on us some Penny Law there. So if the popo's chasing you, you get ahead and get a hold of Penny Law there, Esquire. They'll square you away. Penny A. Cox, Esquire. She'll get you squared away there with the law, with the popo.
I did an advertisement for her where I made a song. I wrote a song called "If the Popo's Chasing You, Call Penny," and it's pretty cool. I'll have to play it one day. I have to play it for us on here one day. So we got
to play that.
Tell us what's going on, Nate.
All right, so I'm going to introduce my wife here. She graduated high school here in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio. She's from, and she joined the Army in 1999, right after high school, enlisted, and was stationed in Germany as a water purification specialist. And during her 3 years there in Germany, she got to deploy to Kosovo, which is another interesting story that you both can get into later, because I know, Will, you were over there too in the Balkans. And yep, she knocked that out. And then, believe it or not, she ETS, came back to Cleveland, Ohio, and went to college off the GI Bill. And believe it or not, she actually proceeded to go into an ROTC program and became a commissioned officer in the Ohio National Guard, which is interesting. So now we got Second Lieutenant Jessica, and of course, before my time and all that. But that's where we met. We met at Bowling Green State University. I was an ROTC instructor, and she was actually at the time, because she had already commissioned, she was a cadre member there. Great times. She was part of the recruiting team as I was an instructor. But, yeah, we had to keep our little dating thing there on the down low, according to new regulations in the Army back in those days. So we just kept it on the DL, man. But you know what? I PCS shortly after, and so did she. She had to go to training. And we got married, and I moved on to Fort Riley, Kansas, back to a combat unit. And our chains of command were pretty good with us. They knew about our situation, and they actually kind of just made fun of us. She worked directly for a one-star general, and my battalion commander, I'll tell you about that here in a minute after I let Jessica talk, but my battalion commander in Fort Riley, 1st Infantry Division, he said, "Hey, let me see that photo album you got there, Sergeant." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, go ahead, sir. Check it out, man." And I was like, "Ooh." And I forgot in the back of it, there was a pic, because he already met my wife, because we went to military balls together and all that shit, pre-deployment and all that good stuff. He's looking at it, and I'm thinking, oh, man, there's a picture in the back, man. We're all in our dress blues and as cadre together at BGSU, Bowling Green State University. And, man, I tell you what, he's like, "Hey, this is funny." And I'm like, "What's that, sir?" He goes, "This looks like Jessica in this picture." I was like, "Oh, yeah, roger that. Yeah. Flip the page." And he's like, "Well, no, hold on for a second. Matter of fact, this looks like Lieutenant Jessica." Wow, as a matter of fact, this looks like medical branch Lieutenant Jessica. I'm like, sir, hold up. I was like, now just so he goes, dude, he looked at me, he goes, "I don't give a shit about all that stuff, man." He goes, "We're in Northwest Baghdad in combat operations. Do you think I said, "Sir, she's in the National Guard. We're not even in the same component, and everything's cool." They didn't even care, man. They just laughed about it. He goes, "I wish I would have known about it before, because I would have," he said, I would have put a scare tactic on you with the Sergeant Major, man. We would act like we were going to bust you for something stupid, or whatever. But no, it was cool, man. Great story there. But Jessica, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you, if Will don't mind there, and go ahead. It's your floor, baby.
All right. Well, thanks for the bio. You had all that down and accurate and good. It means you've been listening. So that's great. Will, thank you very much for having me on. My story is nowhere near as interesting or, as awesome as your guys's, like he said, I enlisted at age 17. As soon as I turned 17, did delayed entry program. I was so excited my entire senior year that I was already promised to the Army. My dad actually pretty much had to sign custody over at MEPS that the Army owned me, and I turned 18 in basic. And then my first duty station, Germany. There was no better age to be in Germany from age 18 to 21. So that worked out really good. And then while I was there, like he said, we got called up for Kosovo, and I wish I had understood more of what was going on in that region at the time. I hate to say it, when you're 18, 19, 20, you kind of don't pay attention to the news as much as you do when you're older. I would encourage any young enlisted person to at least once a day get on the news. But this is also pre-internet, so you're not on your phone scrolling and finding out, what's going on. My information was coming from CNN at the chow hall just during breakfast. We were just hurry up and eating and getting out. And then we had a cook who thought it was funny to put on Elmo's World most mornings anyway, so I missed half the news. When I was at CIF is actually when I started seeing like things were kind of, little tense in that region or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's where we're going. So we got there. I was actually in Macedonia and Camp Able Sentry, doing water purification, doing water operations. There was issues with the Albanians at the time. And I guess they were cutting off water supply and stuff like that. That's why they sent us, because they just needed to make sure that they were self-sufficient in case something happened geographically where, like city water was cut off or whatever. So that's why we were there on Able Sentry. And it was a great mission. It was very interesting. In fact, I was going through my scrapbook and I found my old K4 badge. Still have that. But we didn't have to purify water all the time. So then they started doing other weird things with us. Like I was involved in sling load operations for several weeks where we just had connexes full of supplies that had to get up to Bonsteel and Monteith because they kept cutting off the road supplies. And then we were escorting, when we could do the roads, we were escorting the convoys up to the border, at least just to get them to Bonsteel and Monteith and stuff, and then coming back. And so we had an interesting mission, and it wasn't just water. But actually I was there when September 11th happened. And that was weird because we were technically the closest water asset to theater if something were to start immediately in that region with who we suspected was in orchestration of September 11th. So we had to pack up a ROPU, which is a reverse osmosis water purification unit, and like be ready to do something else. And so we didn't know what was going on there. That was a strange time. And then came back to Germany, and then I got out of active duty, went into the National Guard, ended up home for like one semester, and then got called up in February of 2003 to go with a water detachment in Dayton, Ohio. And we were supposed to go to Iraq, and we were supposed to start in Turkey and work our way down. Ended up spending like 6 months in Jersey, not going because Turkey kind of like backed out of a lot of like the amount of troops that were allowed on the country. So pretty much they just sent us home. They didn't know where to put us because everything else was already spoken for. So almost deployed and didn't, but was ready nonetheless. And then, like he said, I went to Bowling Green State University and met my husband. And at that time, I was a completion cadet because I kind of jumped in already having most of my college done. So they were just kind of waiting for me to graduate to commission me. And then so I was kind of hanging around. And then I got to do 9 months of recruiting. And we hit it off from there. And then being dual military was fun because he was active duty. I was National Guard. I think the first year and a half of our marriage, we saw each other for maybe 2 months total. We got married. I had to go to Benning. He had a PCSS to Kansas. Then I had to go to San Antonio. I came back. We were together long enough to go to a mill ball, I think 1 week, 2 weekends maybe. Then he had to go to NTC. Then he had to deploy to Iraq. He came back. We were in the middle of building a house. And then I found out that I had the opportunity to go to my environmental science officer school. So he was in Iraq. I got my date, and it's a 9-week resident course down in San Antonio. And I left a week before he got home. So after him being gone for 13 months, he called that night, and I'm crying. And he's like, what's the matter? I go, I got my environmental science school. And he goes, well, that's great. And I go, I leave a week before you go. I'm going to be gone for 2 months after you get back. And he was like, that's okay. We knew Kansas was going to suck anyway. Just go ahead. You've been wanting it. Go ahead. So he got.
I called her from Iraq. Well, she was crying. I was like, oh, here we go. I've been through this show before. Let me guess. You got a boyfriend back at Fort Riley, another soldier on post.
Yeah, the Army.
I'm just used to it, man. You know, I mean, you gotta be realistic, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, not at all the case. I'm like, I have to go to school. So like literally like right before I left, I put new ice in the freezer. I got a bottle of scotch with a ribbon on it. Like, congratulations for being home. And then washed all his clothes because they hadn't been washed in a year and put them back in the dresser. And then there I go to San Antonio. And then he gets home. And then I finally get home. And then a couple weeks later, my unit was like, can you go to Korea for 3 weeks for Operation, I think it was Key Resolve, for a training exercise? And I'm like, never been to Korea. So I handed him the binder because we were building a house. I'm like, here's everything you need to know, every contractor you need to call, and I'll be home in 3 weeks. So that was a whole first like year and a half of marriage. But and then I we came to Ohio, and I was in the Michigan Army National Guard, and then finally just got to a point where it was time to resign, and now we're both out.
Now y'all just skating on retirement pay.
She's got a good job at the railroad. So
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
she's a manager at a railroad there here in Northwest Ohio. Pretty good thing here. But yeah, it's a good life, man. We just bought a new camper. Actually, it's not even a camper. It's a park model, like a little trailer thing. And up at Oak Harbor on Lake Erie, Oak Harbor, Ohio, on Lake Erie. That's like our summer home we go to. So whenever time she gets time off work, we're up there, stay in the weekends, and got our golf cart. We cruise around, and we just have a good time up there, man. It's good life. Good life. Life's easy, man.
I know all about it. I can just see you guys with your little cooler on the back. You got your tunes going. You got your cart decorated for the latest holiday. You're doing the parade stuff. You're involved also out on the lake and doing your water activities. So, Jessica, tell me what it's like as a little girl to be the little girl that grows up and joins the Army at 17. Tell me about, 5-year-old Jessica and 7-year-old Jessica. Tell me about that little girl.
She was spastic. So I grew up in close to downtown Cleveland, about West 130th area in Cleveland. My dad was a steel worker and a Vietnam vet, which means I learned a colorful language early. So I was already ready. I was already ready for the Army, but steel workers and Vietnam vets. And then my mom, she was fantastic. She was a stay-at-home mom and raised us. And then we moved to the suburbs of Cleveland. Cleveland was getting a little rough. We moved to the suburbs and stuff. And I just always knew that I wanted to be in the service. At the young age, I told them in 3rd grade, I'm like, I'm going to join the service. They're like, okay, So grew up in a household where it was like, we encourage and emotionally support anything you want to do. However, if you think there's a college fund, there is not. So it was like, figure it out. So we just grew up, and we grew up in a town where either you went to college or you went to the military, or you just kind of stuck around, and kind of, some people went a wrong way with drugs, and some people, made a life for themselves and stuff in my old hometown. But I always knew I wanted to go. And then my brother is 2 years, he's 3 years older than me, 2 years in grade. And so he joined the Army before I did. My dad was Navy. He was he's like with the Brownwater Navy. He was in the rivers in Vietnam, and Kenan, Da Nang, and Ben Tui. But both of us went Army. My brother went Army, and then I was interested in it. I picked a MOS off of a Pauly Shore movie, In the Army Now. When you're 17 and making life decisions, it sounds good. It sounded like a good idea. Actually, it was great. It was fantastic. I loved the MOS. I loved what I did. That's actually why I picked environmental science officer when I became an officer, because I saw them come and like inspect our water, and we couldn't distribute it until they gave the go ahead. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, to be that person who, who checks all that and knows all that information. So like I said, the second I could, it was like right after my birthday, I was 17, went up to MEPS and then enlisted and swore in and all that stuff. And then they had to wait for me to graduate. I graduated, and it was 2 weeks later, I was gone in basic training. Actually at Fort Jackson, where Nate was a drill sergeant, but actually he wasn't a drill sergeant at my cycle, but it was right after that. So he's not robbing the cradle too bad, but yeah. So then I joined the Army. It was the best decision of my life I ever made.
So what was it like when people talk about like stepping off the bus, or the duffel bag drag, or the I forget what the drill sergeants call it, but they call it something that they just enabled it back where the drills could get up in your face. What was it like for you when that happened? Was it no big deal, or were you like wanting to get back at them?
I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic school, and I also had very strict parents. And honestly, nuns are way scarier than drill sergeants, so I was just prepared for anything. Just whatever they're going to throw at me. And I had a lot of friends and my brother and everybody who had just recently gone to basic training, so I kind of heard, and so I was like mentally prepared. And actually, I think I over prepared myself to the point where I was like, okay, I can do this. This isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. They're not going to murder me. I'm okay. Like a shark attack, them coming at you, but you're just like, okay, just, and like the whole goal was, I was like, I'm going to try to go as long as possible with them not knowing my name. And it was like day 2 and they're like, stop knocking. They're yelling at me. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So it wasn't too bad. And I actually personally had some really good drill sergeants. Like they really are like your mom and dad. Like you feel like they're protecting you and like they have your back and like you can, like if you have to go to them, you can go to them. You try not to, but it wasn't as hideous as I thought it was going to be. And then, like I said, nuns are scarier. So, I mean, it was okay.
So when you were a kid, who was your non-parental, mentor? Or who was your, like a lot of people say Aunt so-and-so or preacher so-and-so? Who was it that you looked up to as a kid? Do you remember somebody?
Honestly, I was in my high school had an Air Force Junior ROTC. And I was really big into that. And I loved, all the extra groups they had, but we had a Sergeant Jerry Hyatt. And this guy was an old Vietnam vet and he was from West Virginia and had some of the weirdest sayings. I mean, just some of the funniest stuff, but he was always calm, like nothing. There could be a very serious situation happening and he just even keel the whole time. And that's not my personality at all. So I was like, oh, let's try to harness some of that. And he was definitely a big influence and a big mentor on me. And I was fortunate enough to have just good adults around me all growing up, just people who were always encouraging and pushing you forward and stuff and telling you can do it and stuff. So I was very fortunate with that, but definitely Sergeant Hyatt was a huge influence on me.
Do you remember a time like I was in Kosovo and I was at Able Century a little bit before you? I believe I was there when it seemed to me like they decided to call us K4 and we had to go and put the K and the 4 on our vehicles. They gave us stencils, we were over there already and it was like, okay, you're K4 now. I'm like, okay. What was it like for you to go to, that was, it wasn't combat, but doggone it, it was right next door to it.
Yeah, it was a little strange. Like I said, I wish I had known more of what was going on in the region. And I remember going to CIF and it was on the TV there because we had to draw extra equipment to go and stuff. And it was on TV. It was like, oh boy, here's where we're going and stuff. And I was like Advon. It was just me and the squad leader. We were the first ones there so we could receive the rope use and hurry up and get them set up while everybody else came. And like there was, smoke in the hills and stuff. And I'm from Ohio. We don't have a terrain feature. It is flat here. You can watch your dog run away for 3 days and there's a lot of hills up there, mountains. And so just seeing it, but seeing like different areas of smoke. And he's like, that's where stuff's happening. I was like, oh boy, that's awfully close, closer than you want. And then it was the games that were being played. And that was why we were there is like okay, well, you did this. We're going to cut off your water supply. Well, we're going to cut off the roads and you're not going to have access. And it was awesome watching the Army being like, okay, well, if you're going to do that to us, we got answers to that. We can get around that. So we got around everything that was thrown at us and it was kind of fun to see and to be a part of. So it was, it was interesting in that aspect. And the sling loading was very interesting. You would learn sling load with water because you can sling load water bullets, but these are just containers, connexes like I deal with now at work and stuff. Being on top of a container and you're holding the line and the wind's coming at you and you're hooking it up and then jumping off and running away. And then Chinook goes and, flies off at the box you were just standing on top of. It was interesting. It was definitely different experiences. Getting told I was going there, I was just kind of like, well, this will be an adventure. And then, like I said, September 11th happened. So we were there. And when we were there, it was the kind of the hot spot at the moment. In early, like 01, because we got there like in spring. I think we left sometime in the fall. And then we got to do an R&R in Bulgaria, which was amazing. Bulgaria is a very wild, fascinating country, just culturally completely different than anything I've ever seen. All the jokes about Eastern Europe, where you can go over there with 5 cents and buy a hotel, I felt like that was true. But we came back from Bulgaria, and we were the last people who got to take an R&R, because then September 11th happened right after, literally like the day after we got back. And that changed everything. So then that was, that's the entire story. But it was a NATO mission too, obviously. So working with the Belgians and, the Spanish and the British were with us on Able Century. And then the other nations had their own camps around. And it was interesting to see what they provided also versus what we provided. The Brits actually provided quite a bit. They had I want to say it was like their third pair of reg, but I could be mistaken on what they were nomenclatured as, but they were, kind of elite kind of guys. Dangerous when they got bored. Their tricks on each other were dangerous. Like, you needed to give them a mission, or if they were just sitting around, bad things were going to happen. One guy's shoes got super glued to the ceiling, and then he couldn't stand still because he kept sticking to the ground and all kinds of weird stuff. But those guys were dangerous. And like the French, I think, provided like 5 firefighters. Like, and I'm just like, that doesn't seem balanced, but okay. And so it was interesting. It was just interesting to see how like a NATO mission works and how, operations work with the Army. It's like, well, you cut us off, we're going to find a way around it and stuff. It was very fascinating to watch or to be a part of.
So did you have something, how do I ask this question? I've seen these big burly guys, right? And they're sleeping in their cot, and you put a little spider on them and they'll lose their flipping mind. Did you have something that was like an Achilles heel to you? Did you have something that creeped you out, or were you cool with, brushing your teeth outside, of a tent and then spitting out in a can? How did all that work for you? Were you cool with all that?
Yeah, all that stuff was fine with me. It's funny because like you guys are airborne. Not a huge fan of heights. So like if I have to get on something where I'm up, I take an extra step, like jumping off the Connex. I was like, oh boy, the ground, it's not that far, but you feel like it's so far away. And so, yeah, like heights maybe were a little bit of a, like, and I got over it. I don't even know if anybody noticed, but like that, but, getting dirty doesn't bother me, like sleeping outside doesn't bother me. I was always a camper as a kid anyway. So, I was always, falling in creeks and rolling around in dirt and stuff. So none of that stuff bothered me, but anything with heights, it just took me an extra second to do it. So
how did you deal with the attention of being an attractive female in an austere environment? That's an honest question.
Nobody bothered me. I just, I approach everything with humor. So, I'm kind of like not like Jessica Rabbit. I'm not the seductive kind of girl. I just kind of, like I'm just the fun, quirky girl over here. But, let's see here. Also, I worked with Braxton, and this guy was built like the Green Mile, and I was like his little sister, so nobody was going to mess with him either. So it worked out fine. I never had problems as a female.
Yeah. So look, I hear mention of that time and time and time again about how if you ain't expecting no shit, you ain't gonna get no shit because you don't want to take it from the get-go, right? It's like patting your kid on the hand early when they're reaching for something that they shouldn't. They learn over time. So where, they're not 11, all of a sudden you're spanking the shit out of them, And so when you meet somebody and they try to push you a little bit, you don't take no nonsense from them, and they leave you the frick alone, either that or you smell so bad because you've been rolling in dirt, like you said. I don't know.
Helps.
So tell me about your recruiting job that you did on Nate. Tell me how that worked.
Well, I didn't necessarily recruit Nate. I guess Nate recruited me. But no, so
I don't know. I think you were the recruiter.
No. So after I commissioned, they were having so we had to go to this thing in Benning called Bullock 2, which I hear they don't even have anymore. And honestly, I don't even know why we were doing it. So I had to wait for a slot at Benning and with another guy that I graduated with too. And so pretty much we were in this holding pattern where, you're not officially qualified. Like you can't deploy, because you're not officially qualified. You can't go to your OBC, officer basic course until you get this Bullock done. And there was a backlog on this. So it just took 9 months before they could get us in on a date. So the BGSU recruiter, she was like, well, you know what? We'll get you on active duty and we'll get you pay for 9 months until you can go so that you're not just in this holding pattern. And so then I got to be what they called a gold bar recruiter for BGSU. I went to high schools. I went to other colleges. I went to different events, set up tents, whatever, like tell people about Army ROTC and just kind of the typical recruiting stuff. And so I was part of the cadre, but it was understood that it's a temporary, position for cadre. You're there until you leave and for your training.
And so you're just minding your own business, and all of a sudden you see this ranger walk by, and you're like,
yeah. I would not say that that's exactly how that went, but
her mouth hit the floor.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't handle the good looks that were walking down the hallway.
It was them shiny boots that got you.
Well, this is the ACU, so the boots aren't even shiny.
Well, before that, though, I had the starch BDUs and the spit shine green jungle boots, man. Coming in there, stud. She couldn't help herself. She was drooling on the floor. I thought she was going to slip a couple times in the hallway with the drool coming out of her mouth when I would glide down the hallway.
Bill, are you buying this?
Oh yeah. I am. So tell me about the time when y'all were slipping around trying not to get caught. Y'all almost got caught.
Okay, I'll take that one on, Will. That was a good one right there because what it was she had just commissioned and she was working the I kind of looked at it, I'm like, okay, well, you're not a student, you're a cadre member. And I'm a cadre member. We're working together. And I said, would you like to go out to dinner with me? We're both single, young. And she goes, I'm still 10 years older than she is, but I was like, would you like to go out to dinner with me? Now that you're cadre and all this and that. She goes, well, we're not supposed to be doing that. I said, well, no. I said, but we can go, to dinner. And I don't know if you want to define that as fraternization or whatever. So we went to Outback Steakhouse, and I bought her a nice Outback Steakhouse meal there, and then it was kind of downhill from there. She was still skeptical about wanting to date me and stuff, but a few weeks later, she caught on, and she's like, "Oh, the Nate dog, man, I gotta get with the Nate dog." So that's how it rolled downhill.
I have never once called you Nate dog, by the way.
Nate dog. All right, Nate, be quiet. Jess, tell me the story. I want to hear what Nate's lucky to have Jessica. Of course he is. Yes.
So just minding my business at BGSU, trying to do my job, and the new guy starts kind of snoodling around me, and then he did ask me to dinner, and I was really skeptical at first, and honestly, sorry, it wasn't the good looks, you sliding around. It was the sense of humor got me. I'm a sense of humor person. And
what was different about him from all these other millions of guys that are French and Danish and Dutch and Belgium? And come on now, because they're all slipping around what was it about him? It was obviously
I don't know.
Dapper, good looks, and it couldn't have been just his intelligence and his wit. Come on, he's not that. Right?
You know what? A good sense of humor goes a long way. But no, yeah, it just kind of sparked. But yeah, I was in my mid-20s, and yeah, I never, I was like, whatever, I just kind of was doing my own thing and stuff. And he asked me to dinner, and I was nervous because it's like, okay, well, technically, if you get caught like this, it depends on your chain of command. Actually, it's funny. We actually had the regulations printed out and in our junk drawer. And every now and again, we'd read to be like, okay, well, under what scope are we allowed to do this? And everything was pretty much written as you could not date, but somehow you could be married. And it was all at the discretion of your chain of command. And at that time, could have been sketchy. We were technically working in the same, place and everything like that. However, I also thought the day that a National Guard environmental science officer is seeing over an enlisted infantry unit, something has gone terribly wrong and everybody else is dead. So I felt like we were good. But yeah, so, we dated, we lived together. We were very discreet. People only found out when no one ever caught us. People only we're all friends with the people that we worked with, and they think it's hysterical now, but people only found out when we decided pretty much to tell them. And then once we got to Kansas, I was with the 35th Infantry Division in Leavenworth, and he was with his unit. They were on active duty, and like he said, his you know what? When your wife sends you a little photo album and we happen to have a picture of all of our friends and we're all in our dress blues and stuff like that, maybe don't put it on your desk if you're trying to not have people find it. So, so anyway, I sent him a little photo album, and so his commander found out about him, and that was funny. And then my general knew about him. In fact, when I had to go to Korea, I was advon. I went with the general, and down in the hotel lobby, shaking hands with him. He goes like, "Oh, I hear you just got back. You knew everything about him." So when they say chain of command, like really, that's, you know, our chain of command at that point didn't care, and we were fine ever since. And neither of us are in the military now, but we're both still married to each other. So it was a good decision overall.
Yeah, I found out about the regulation because, Will, if you remember when you and I first joined the Army back in the day, it was okay. It was fine for enlisted and officers to date and hang out as long as they weren't in the same underneath the same chain of command or in the same unit. It's something to that effect, if you remember correctly. Because I remember enlisted guys dating lieutenants and vice versa and all this stuff. But I was at Fort Bragg, and it was like 1999. I still remember this. I think when the regulation finally came out that enlisted and officers couldn't date or, you know, have inappropriate relations or whatever. And I was at Bow Ties in Fayetteville. I don't know if you remember old Bow Ties, but I was at the club, and I was single at the time, and my buddy and I were at the club, and I was on the dance floor with this girl, man. Yeah, oh, yeah. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And you know, or she's like, "So what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I'm in 1505.
I'm a jump master, ranger,
Yeah.
pathfinder."
And she's like, "Oh, okay." She goes, "What's your rank?" I'm like, who the fuck asked, excuse my language, who the fuck asked what my rank is, man? What's going on with this? I said, "I'm a Sergeant E5, man." And she said, "Bye." I said, "What?" And she walked off the dance floor. And I went over to my buddy, and he goes, "What happened?" I was like, "I don't know, dude. She asked me what my rank was, and she ran off the dance floor." And I said, "I don't know what's going on, man." And he goes, "Oh, dude," he goes, "she's a lieutenant, man, or something." I said, "What's that got to do with anything?" He goes, "Man, they just came out with a new regulation, dude." I said, "She got scared and ran off." And I said, "What?" I said, "What regulation, man? What? So some high-speed officer can get a bullet on his OER or something, man?" I said, "What's this all about?" Because I never heard of such a thing, you know. And by the time I was with Jessica, I got with Jessica, I had like 17 years time in service, Will. And I said to myself, you know what? I've done so much for this country. I almost died a couple times for this country. I got friends that have died. I've carried friends. And I'll be damned if the Army's going to tell me, sorry, I guess I'm diming myself on this show today. But so what? The Army's not going to tell me who I can and can't fall in love with anymore. You know what I'm saying? And that's how that was my true belief. And oh, by the way, I knew I was going back to the worst place in the world back in those days, Northwest Baghdad, for 13 months. And I'm like, this might be, this third time's a charm, you know, this might be it for me. So the Army's not going to tell me who I can or can't love. So, and I mean that truly. So, you know.
Are you sure you didn't scare her off with your dancing?
No, man.
I've seen you on the dance floor. You're a terror during weddings.
I was 165 pounds. I was a little stud, man. All dark and everything, man.
Just checking.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't scare her off. Like I said, she just got scared because of my rank, man. She was like, "What?" I was like, "What? That's not high enough for you?" Because, you know, Will, back in that environment, you know, them girls, man, they want to know what kind of rank, you know, like they want to know, like they want some stripes, man. They want some senior rank and shit back in those days, you know, when you're single in Fayetteville, you know, doing the clubs in Fayetteville, man.
They call those ladies Tri-Care Rangers. You know, they're looking for that LES. I found my LES not long ago. One of my LESs, I was like, shit, we was broke back then. Damn.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you,
have mercy.
The brokest I ever was in my life I was a drill sergeant at Fort Jackson, and I'll tell you what, I was a staff sergeant, and I lived in housing, which was at the time. It's not like that now, but at the time it was really shitty housing, man. It was old, cockroach. I'm talking cockroaches, man. They called them palmetto bugs, but they were cockroaches, man. And I was on post. The only good part about it was I was only 3 minutes from my battalion, because, you know, I had to be at work every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, man, getting them privates up and all that stuff. But the poorest I ever was, I was a staff sergeant making $1,600 base pay, and I only got BAS, basic allowance for subsidies for food, no BAQ, man, so everything was out of the pocket. And the ex-wife, she didn't work. I had 2 babies at home, and yeah, that was a struggle, man. I remember those days, man. It was like, man, let's put it this way. People make fun of it and say that it's funny, but I literally qualified, and I'm sure as you did, I qualified for food stamps and all that stuff. I didn't take it, but theoretically I still could qualify for it. But yeah, I think I was making $1,700, and then I made E7, and bam, you know, that's when you start. Once you know, for anybody out there, our listeners and viewers, once you make the rank of E7 is when you start living more comfortable. Once you start making the senior non-commissioned officer ranks, and our life was comfortable, man. Matter of fact, when I PCS'd out of Fort Jackson, when my 2 years was done on the trail, I went back to Fort Bragg and ended up in 3505 for my 3rd PCS to the 82nd Airborne Division. We were able to buy our first brand new house, man. It was right there in Rayford. I don't know if you remember where Rayford was, back in the back 40 there. When I go to work in the morning for PT, I'd go through that back gate right there on Longstreet, right before you went up the hill, and then there was the 82nd Airborne Division Advanced Airborne School right there on the left, and then you would turn on Ardennes Street. But that's how I made it to work.
Amen.
Yeah.
So just tell me about shooting guns and doing push-ups and Army stuff. Were you good at that kind of thing?
I was never an athlete. I was always more book smart. I was like, you know, I went to a big school. So like here, you know, it's a small school. If you want to play any sport, all you got to do is walk on, you're going to play. They had like week-long tryouts for stuff. I was 5'2", had no muscle tone. Like, well, what am I going to do against in volleyball with these 5'9" girls, you know? So I was just like, whatever. I was book smart, like head of the science club, had that going for me. But, you know, like, so the physical part, I had to like train myself, and I knew it was coming. So I was trying to prepare myself. I did okay with it. You know, like I'm clumsy, but I did okay with PT and everything. Shooting guns, my dad started us off shooting at like, I think I was 8. So it wasn't new to me or anything like that. Like we were, you know, just wait for dad to get home at 3. And then all we had to do is line up the ironing board, line up all the guns with all the ammo. And then he'd be standing there behind us, and we could shoot as much as we wanted to. Back then ammo didn't cost as much. So it was a little easier to do the target practice. So that part didn't, you know, didn't shock me or anything like that. You have to learn, you have to kind of like brain dump everything you learned just, you know, with shotguns at home, and then relearn how to, you know, do the way the Army or drill sergeant, which Nate will tell you, you know, to do everything they tell you to do. So just take all instruction and you're good. All commands from the tower and you're okay. So.
Yeah. Tell me about the people that are your family. Tell me about the folks that pray for you and that you pray for at night. You know, tell me about, you know, brag on your family, if you don't mind, for a little bit, you know?
I mean, they're adorable. I have a great family. We had a very tight-knit group. And I have one brother. He was a few years older than me. He was my best friend. We, you know, in high school, we were running partners, you know, and stuff. I only ever got in trouble covering for him. But you know, I have my brother and his family. I have, you know, 2 nephews and a sister-in-law there. And then my dad's adorable. Like I said, he was a steelworker and a Vietnam vet, and fantastic father, totally involved with us. You know, he's out there just helping us with every school project. And then we had Armed Forces Explorers. And through our recruiting station, and Sergeant Hargrove was my recruiter. My brother's recruiter was a recruiter for the town, and he was fantastic too. Another mentor, actually. And my dad ran a group of kids who were interested in military. We'd just go camping and just tear up the woods and just do stupid stuff or whatever. And he'd just be the one adult out there letting us tear up the woods. And so we had that. My mom was fantastic. Like I said, she was a stay-at-home mom, could always count on her, was always there. You know, I have a new appreciation for her now as, you know, an adult woman, what she had to deal with just keeping a household running like that, you know, and everything. So that's kind of my immediate family. And then of course, you know, I grow up and now I have a fantastic, you know, of my own family. You know, I have my husband, Nate, who's my BFF, and I hit stepmommy jackpot with, you know, Trey and Maddie and Taylor, and they all have their significant others, and I love all of them. And yeah, that's my group. That's my people.
What do you find yourself doing at work? Are you a manager? Are you a boss? Are you a
The hardest thing I have is describing what I do for a living. So I work for the railroad. I work for intermodal. Intermodal are the boxes that can go on either a train, a truck, or a boat, and moving that around. I manage the operation that deals with the trucks coming in, loading the trains, and getting the trains sent to transportation so they can pull the train. And so I run the crane operation that has that. So I have my operators who run the cranes. I have people who run the ground. I have people who run the haussers, and then inside people. And pretty much my job, I couldn't tell you what my schedule is. It is wild. It changes constantly and it rotates. And like I just worked all this weekend. I'll work next weekend, but then like I'll get a couple days off, and then I'll work nights, and then I'll go immediately into days. So it's a weird schedule, but the way I kind of describe my job is just putting out little fires all day long. Just here's a problem, put it out. Here's a problem, put it out. That's what I do all day long. So
I love it.
Hey, I want to real quick, Jess, I got to give a shout out to Aunt Sally. She's on here. I noticed she put a few things in it. What's up, Aunt Sally? But she was like a sister to me growing up.
I love Aunt Sally.
Hey, Will, going back to the females in basic training shooting, that's a little quick story I got real quick, man. When I was a drill sergeant, I remember the first qualification range we had, because you know at Fort Jackson we were co-ed, and I asked our senior drill sergeant, our platoon, I was like, "Hey, brother, can I ask you a question?" I said, "I noticed the stats here." I said, "I noticed the females have a higher percentage of first-time go at the qualification range." And you know what he told me? He goes, "Oh, you're going to learn that real quick." He goes, "They'll qualify a lot faster than the male recruits." I said, "Why is that? You would think it'd be just the opposite." He goes, "Because females have no pride to hurt." He goes, "You get a male 17, 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid." He said they were raised to go deer hunting or whatever with their dad's weapon and this and that, and they want to they want to play do their own thing. And he goes, the female recruits, the female soldiers will listen to every detail we give them on the zero range and the qualification range, and they will follow it by word. And he goes, that's why we have a higher percentage. He goes, your next 2 years here, you're going to see that every cycle. You're going to see that females will always have the higher percentage of first-time go rate for the weapons qualification range. Pretty interesting, because you brought up Jessica with shooting and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Totally understand that. Totally. So, Jessica, tell us something that we haven't asked you yet. Tell me, you know, Nate's worst joke or something. I don't know.
It's wildly entertaining being married to this man. It very much is. But yeah, it's like I said, it's been great. I gotta say, it's we did the dual military thing, and I talked a little bit about that, like how the first year and a half of our marriage we just saw each other a fraction of the time and stuff. And I have to say something about military spouses, since I've been on both ends of the spectrum. It is so much easier to be the person who leaves than who is the person who's left, because you still have your life and you're still trying to act like it's normal, but there's a huge chunk that is missing now, you know, so you're taking over every role. Whereas when you're the person who leaves, no matter what, it's different anyway. So you're just, you know, you're picking up a new routine, you're picking up a new, you know, you're figuring out where you're going to put your cut, where you're going to put your sleep, but you know, it's all new to you anyway. And then you just count on the fact that there's somebody back there handling everything. Like when I had to hand him the binder and be like, here, our house is being built. If they have any questions, the answer's in this binder somewhere. And then him having to be like, okay, like that's great and stuff. Like, I'm sure that was a lot of fun for it. And there was like, I think I got to call him like once in between, like while I was there. And he was like, he unloaded like a million questions. And, like, it wasn't like, hi, honey, I love you. It was more like, oh my God, like the hole was dug in the wrong spot. We have to reinforce the, foundation. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, well, make that happen, and, it's rough. It's harder to be the person who gets left behind than it is a person who moves forward. It definitely is. So that's one little thing that I found out.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I feel like I need to make y'all, I have it prepared, but I feel like I need to make y'all do like a marriage quiz, like write down each other's shoe size and stupid
I already
stuff
win.
like that.
I already win. I know his soch. I know his shoe size. I know.
You already got me, Will. I'm done. Yeah. The only thing I remember, dude, is her phone number, man, on her cell phone, man.
I love it. I love it.
My middle name. You were good there, but I'm saying.
We're taking a trip down, Will, to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Actually in Sanford. I'm having a family reunion down there. I believe, what did I say it was, honey? July 18th. July 18th, the weekend.
And that's why I win, by the way.
What's that?
That's why I win the marriage quiz, because I know all these details.
Yeah.
July 18th.
But yeah, we got a family reunion down there. My uncle, man, he's getting up there in age, Will. So we're gonna. His daughter called me. She's his caretaker, and he's a retired first sergeant there at Fort Bragg, and he still lives in Sanford, and we're gonna have a family reunion there in July, and I'm looking forward to it, man, because I haven't stepped foot on that place in 21 years, man. I left out of Fort Bragg in 2005, man, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to go to the Advanced Airborne School, and I want to go to the museum, the museums, plural. Not a big fan. I don't care about the PX and all that stuff, man. I just want to go to our old stomping grounds. But somebody told me that was there recently. I would never recognize it forever. I wouldn't even recognize what it looks like, man. Because, Will, when I left, we still had the old barracks on Ardennes streets, or on Ardennes Street with the what do we have, 5 buildings per battalion on Ardennes there, But I'm looking forward to it. Jess, I think I took Jess there one time. Didn't we go down there one time and stay there?
Yep, we were dating. We stayed with a friend, and
we were dating.
I mean, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago. Yeah. And then the other fun thing is that we think the kids are going to be able to make it down, and like our daughter's super excited. So, that's the house that they were, first raised in. And then, before Nate left Bragg and everything like that. So they were like, 3 and 4, and they lived there. So they're going to see the house that they lived in. They're going to see Fort Bragg, where they know their dad came from and stuff. So, it'll be fun to be able to point out things to them. Like, I planted that tree, you know what I mean? Or, whatever the case might be there. That'll be exciting. And then our other son, he lives in North Carolina, and they'll be coming over, and he can see all that. So, yep.
I want to walk into Green Ramp just once, man, and just see if they'll let me just look inside the hangar there. I just want to look at it, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really wild going back. I'll tell you what I noticed recently going back, if you don't mind. And maybe I pray that it's changed, but I'll tell you that I found that it was grown up, that it was dilapidated, and that it was not to the standard even close to what the way it was back when I was there. I'll tell you, there were some things do you remember the tattered things they used to have on the motor pool fences to kind of block the way you would look in? Remember how back in the days they were tattered? They're still there. They're still tattered, and it's still there, and it's even more tattered now. The roads have potholes. Gruber Road has so many friggin' potholes in it, you can't hardly drive down it without dodging the potholes. There are if you're running down Ardennes, I took a video of it. I tried to find it on my phone the other day, but I got bored looking for it. But there's a video where out of a drainage ditch, there's this plant that's head high. that like unit by unit runs by this thing every morning doing PT, and it just because it's nobody's area, there's a daggum cactus growing out of the doggone pothole thing. And it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. The barracks that were new in the 2000s when I left now are so dilapidated that it's like, whoa, they have not been cared for. They were built shoddily. There's plumbing problems everywhere. There are things that were allowed to fester, and now almost the whole building's got to be either redone or tore down. It's really wild to think. And remember, there was a significant amount of time that there was so many people deployed and such rotations going on that there was no time to even give a shit about what was happening at home station, because you were training for the next rotation. You didn't have time to tell your soldiers to do this or do that. And so I got it on both ends, but it's kind of a sad state at Bragg right now. And I'm hoping it'll get back better. I love the Secretary of War and his ideas on the things that he's trying to do. I'm proud of all that stuff. So hopefully it'll get better.
I heard that, Will. I heard that last summer. I had a buddy from Fort Bragg. We were squad leaders together back in the day, and he stayed here a few days with me and stuff, with me and Jess. And he told me the same thing. He goes, Nate, you don't want to go on Fort Bragg right now. He goes, please don't go. I said, why? What are you talking about? Why wouldn't I want to go? He goes, brother, he goes, they got grass growing in the sidewalks. They got grass growing. He said the same thing you just said, Will. And then he said he went into the Airborne PX because his son is actually stationed there. I think he's in the 504. But anyways, he went there to go visit his son. He goes, I almost got sick to my stomach. He went into the Airborne PX, Will, and he said some dude walked in there with a full beard, pajama bottoms and flip-flops, and he goes, you don't want to go on Fort Bragg right now, man. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, what? I never heard of such a thing. You couldn't even, Will, when you and I were younger in Fort Bragg, because I used to have, when I was a young kid, man, I used to have a little earring in and stuff like that. You couldn't go into a PX in civilian clothes and have an earring on post. I mean, that's how strict it used to be, man. Wow.
Yeah, it's really wild. Only 23% of kids now that are of age can even qualify to go in the military because of pre-existing conditions, because their mom and dad took them to the doctor and got them diagnosed with all these crazy diseases. And we're eating such bad food and crap that it's tearing our children to pieces, both internally and mentally.
That's no kidding, man. I was telling Jess the other day, when I was a school teacher at the high school, these kids would get on their phones and they'd call Uber, and they'd be having McDonald's for lunch every day. Their parents would provide them with a debit card, and they'd get McDonald's or Wendy's or Chick-fil-A instead of eating in the cafeteria like all the other kids had to. I mean, I'm talking a lot of kids. So you would go into the office, and because that's where the Uber drivers were only allowed to just give their food right there in the front office on the desk. That desk would be full with McDonald's bags, man. And so absolutely what you said is absolutely right. And then when I left, because I was not only just a teacher there, but I was also like a military liaison individual. You know, I would try to help kids, and I'd give a couple classes to career advancement courses for like our home ec teacher. She did career enhancement. She would ask me to go in there and teach a class period, and she would go in my classroom and sit with my students while I was in there telling her kids everything about the military. I think the last year, I think we only had one kid that joined the Army or joined the military. I can't remember if it was the Navy or what. Just one kid out of a class of, it's a small school, but out of 45 kids. And then you fast forward, or you backtrack 10, 12 years ago, there'd be 4 or 5 kids per class joining the military, man. It's crazy, man. But you're right.
Or like I saw a thing on Facebook and this mom was ranting and raving and crying about, oh my gosh, with everything going on with Iran and blah, 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 that her kid's going to get drafted and, it's going to be like Vietnam all over again. There's going to be a lottery. Her kid's going to get drafted. Then they showed what, her kid. And it's like, no, your kid's not, no one needs your kid here. And then some other woman got on there and was like, oh, don't worry. My daughter's enlisted. She'll save your son. Like but it's sad. It's hard. It's like you said, half these kids wouldn't even qualify.
Yeah. So, well, just so you know, apparently if you go to Chick-fil-A, not McDonald's or Wendy's, but Chick-fil-A, and you get the Chick-fil-A sauce, there's a little bit of the Holy Spirit in there. So it's okay to buy Chick-fil-A. That's what I was told. I don't know.
I'm with you, man.
so hey, I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys. It's been a lot of fun. Jessica, tell me about what your dreams are. What you got a camper? I mean, what's your future look like? You gonna work and put out fires? Okay, so retirement.
I envy you guys. You guys know what retirement feels like. That is my next goal in life, is retirement, and then just having more of the time to enjoy everything that working towards now. But we're doing really good at enjoying everything we have now, and we have just a really good setup here. We're doing great. But man, retirement would be good. I'm hoping for an early buyout. So.
Watch out! Hey, look! Do you see where UPS drivers are getting paid money to hit a road, and it's like, it's really wild. I'll give you a certain amount of money. All you got to do is agree to never work for UPS again or something. It's like
sold. Threaten me with a good time.
Well, I don't. It's just really. I don't know. It's weird for a company to do something like that. And also know that all these people are already trained workers that they might want to hire back again. You never know what's going to change or whatever. But look, the American worker is so expendable, right? If you want to make any money in this world, go teach yourself to be a plumber and be willing to crawl in the spaces and learn something, like a welder, a sewer. I tell you what, somebody who sews, when you can run a sewing machine, is very valuable these days. Just people that are just willing to get out of the doggone bed and go to work in the morning are valuable these days, right? Sometimes I wonder why have decided I don't like necessarily call myself retired, but I just stopped working for money. I have all these things that come in that help bring money in, but I'm not going to a job to trade time for money anymore. I tell you, it's neat to think if I was to start to do it over again, there's no way that I would be working for some company somewhere. I'd be working for myself.
Now, trades though are where it at. I tell you what, I've needed a carpenter, I've needed a plumber, I've needed a concrete specialist. I have never needed an anthropologist at my house. Never called one up. No.
Oh my gosh. A friend of mine said something about those kinds of jobs before, and I think you put it very well. There's a lot of things that we don't quite need. Being a history major is kind of great, I guess. You know a lot about the past, but I don't know what you're going to do with much of it anymore.
I've never called a women's studies major to my house for anything, for any reason at all. But I have needed a plumber.
Oh my gosh. I'll never forget when one of our family friends from church showed up at about 11 o'clock one night on a Sunday night. It was right at the advent of cell phones. They called us on our cell phone and said, we need to see y'all. And we were like their church mentors, Sunday school people, whatever. And so they showed up at our door, and he comes in and like me and they, and my wife and her go off in one direction, and he and I are standing there. He was in the 82nd chorus at the time. And that's one of the ways that we knew each other. And they were also in our church. And anyway, he was there. We're kind of making small talk or whatever, and all of a sudden, my wife comes back in, and they all like get up and leave. And my wife is sitting there looking at me after they leave, and I'm like, "What's going on?" She's like, she asked me to help extract something from her. Apparently, they were having some kind of intimate encounter with a golf ball, and I'm like, "Well, did you help?" She goes, "Like hell no! I told her to go to the damn emergency room." I'm like, "Okay."
I mean, sometimes you're friends, but I
Wow.
don't care how good of friends you are. You ain't that good of friend.
It was weird. It was weird. I was like,
Ooh-wee.
I
what
thought
goes
it was
on
50,
in the 80-second course?
I thought it was 50-50 whether she would have helped her or not. I don't know. I don't know. It was weird. I don't know. It was weird.
I can't get into the old stories, Jess. I think I told you a couple of them, but back in the day, man, woo! I don't want to tell no stories about what happened in some of those barracks and what happens in that
Change the
environment.
names to protect the innocent. But
Oh,
Yeah, I've seen some crazy shit, man. Woo.
oh man. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Well, hey, I've enjoyed. Oh, I know something. I wanted to show y'all. I want to show y'all something because so I'm gonna here's something. Here's an advertisement I did for Penny. Here we go.
In East LA, down in the Wiregrass, there's a lawyer who'll help you and she'll act fast. Criminal laws are game, she's got your back. When the po-po's chasing, she'll stay on track. If the po-po's chasing you, call Penny. Penny Cox, that's where she'll defend you plenty. For justice and freedom, she's the one to choose. Penny A. Cox, she'll never lose. Misdemeanor felonies, are big or small. Penny fights for your rights, she'll handle it all. With expertise and care, she'll see you through. For the best defense, Penny's there for you. If the po-po's chasing you, call Penny. Penny Cox, that's where she'll defend you plenty. For justice and freedom, she's the one to choose. Penny A. Cox, she'll never lose. In the Wiregrass area, she's your legal friend. With Penny on your side, your troubles will end. Day or night, she'll answer your call. Penny A. Cox, the best of them all. If the po-po's chasing you, call Penny. Penny Cox, that's why she'll defend you plenty. For justice and freedom, she's the one to choose. Penny A. Cox, she'll never lose. Penny Cox, Esquire, the name you trust. Criminal law, she's fair and just. In East LA, she's your guiding light. With Penny A. Cox, everything's all right.
Hey!
Hey, I like that, man. That
The
needs to go
po-po's
viral.
chasing you, call Penny. That's right. That's right. I put that out a while ago. Yeah. Look at that. I've been an aspiring filmmaker for a long time, you know. So yeah. That was fun. That was fun. Go ahead, Nate.
where you at?
I'm right here. Yeah, great show. Call Penny A. Cox if you need a good lawyer to help you out there, like the song just played for us. There it is, Will. Penny A. Cox, Esquire. And po-po's chasing you. Give her a call. Best defense attorney in the land right there. Had a great show, baby, wife, honey. It was great having you on the show, man. That was a lot of fun. We told our stories together. A lot of people were kind of interested. Well, I wonder how they got together. We just told a lot, man. So, anyways, I hope the military don't go back and say, well, this guy's retired. We can go back and get some of his doggone pension and all that. For what, man?
Your chain of command from when you retired was fine with it. We're good. So.
Exactly. All right, man. Thanks, Will, for having us. I appreciate it. Everybody out there, catch Will and I and Ray Barnett on Wednesday night, and we'll be in the NBC room there, nuclear biological chemical room there on Wednesday night. We'll have a good one. All right. See you later, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Marshall in the middle.